Welcome to the Mystery Archive. This is the home of forgotten stories, unexplained events, and, well, the strangest anomalies history left behind. Imagine your home, once a sanctuary of comfort and safety, suddenly becoming a psychological battlefield where your very sanity is under siege. The Smurl family of West Pittston, Pennsylvania, endured a haunting so profound and relentless that it didn't just frighten them. It fundamentally altered their perception of reality and left psychological scars that would last a lifetime. While most accounts of their ordeal focus on the spectacular supernatural phenomena reported between 1974 and 1989, few truly examine the devastating mental toll this experience extracted from each family member. Today, we're diving beyond the sensational headlines and ghostly manifestations to explore the terrifying human cost of what many consider one of the most well-documented hauntings in American history. The haunting begins. A family under siege. Jack and Janet Smurl, along with their two daughters and Jack's parents who lived in the adjoining duplex, initially experienced what seemed like minor disturbances that could easily be rationalized away. The phenomena began subtly in 1974. Shortly after they moved into their duplex on Chase Street, strange water stains appeared on carpets despite no apparent source of moisture. Mysterious scratches materialized on newly refinished woodwork overnight. The family noticed peculiar odors drifting through rooms, sometimes the stench of rotting flesh, other times an overwhelming scent of perfume with no identifiable origin. These early incidents created a persistent undercurrent of unease that the family tried desperately to dismiss as coincidence or the quirks of an older home. As the disturbances continued, the Smurls found themselves caught in a psychological trap familiar to many haunting witnesses: the desperate need to maintain normalcy while confronting increasingly undeniable evidence that something was fundamentally wrong. Janet reported hearing footsteps in empty rooms and disembodied voices whispering incomprehensible phrases. Objects would relocate themselves. Keys placed on a counter would vanish only to reappear in locked drawers, and family photographs would be found face down when no one had touched them. The family's initial response demonstrates a common psychological defense mechanism. They rationalized, blamed each other, questioned their own perceptions, anything to avoid accepting the terrifying alternative that their home might be host to something beyond natural explanation. This cognitive dissonance between what they were experiencing and what they believed possible created the first cracks in their psychological well-being, establishing a foundation of doubt and confusion that would only deepen as events escalated. Escalation of fear. When the unthinkable becomes reality. The hauntings' progression from unsettling to genuinely terrifying followed a pattern that paranormal researchers have observed in many similar cases, an escalation that seemed almost calculated to break down the family's resistance and sense of security. By the early 1980s, the phenomena had become impossible to rationalize away. The family reported being physically assaulted by invisible forces. Janet was allegedly thrown downstairs, leaving her with bruises and injuries that required medical attention. Jack described being levitated from his bed and experiencing violent shaking that left him, well, completely disoriented and absolutely terrified. The entity, if that's what it was, seemed to know exactly how to exploit each family member's deepest fears and vulnerabilities. What makes the Smurl case psychologically fascinating is how the haunting became, honestly, more and more personal and invasive. The alleged entity didn't just move objects or create noises. It reportedly violated the family's most intimate moments and sacred spaces. Jack and Janet spoke of demonic figures materializing in their bedroom, of being unable to engage in marital relations without sensing a malevolent presence watching them. Their daughters reported being touched by invisible hands and hearing threatening voices that told them terrible things would happen to their parents. This level of personal violation goes beyond simple fear. It represents a systematic destruction of the psychological boundaries that allow us to feel safe and maintain our sense of self. The family's desperate outreach to religious figures, paranormal investigators, and eventually the media reveals their growing isolation and, really, the erosion of their support systems. When Ed and Lorraine Warren, the famous paranormal investigators, became involved in 1986, they confirmed the family's worst fears by declaring the home infested with multiple entities, including a powerful demon. While this validation might have provided some psychological relief, finally someone believed them, it also meant accepting a reality more terrifying than any they could have imagined. The family underwent multiple exorcisms, each promising relief but ultimately failing to end the phenomena. This cycle of hope and disappointment created a psychological roller coaster that left the Smurls emotionally exhausted and increasingly uncertain whether escape was even possible. The psychological fallout, trauma and disbelief. The mental and emotional toll on the Smurl family manifested in ways both obvious and subtle, affecting each member differently while binding them together in shared trauma. Sleep deprivation became chronic, as family members lay awake dreading what might occur in the darkness, or were repeatedly awakened by disturbances throughout the night. Medical research has extensively documented how prolonged sleep disruption affects cognitive function, emotional regulation, and mental health. The Smurls experienced these effects intensely. Perhaps even more psychologically damaging than the haunting itself was the skepticism and outright disbelief the family encountered from their community and the wider public. When their story became public knowledge in 1986, through a series of newspaper articles and eventually a book titled The Haunted, the Smurls faced a second wave of trauma from those who accused them of fabricating the entire ordeal for attention or profit. Neighbors questioned their sanity. Skeptics dissected their claims, looking for inconsistencies or rational explanations that would prove the family delusional or dishonest. This social invalidation created additional layers of psychological distress. Not only were they dealing with terrifying phenomena in their home, but they were also fighting to have their experiences acknowledged as real rather than dismissed as fantasy or mental illness. The concept of folie à plusieurs, or shared psychotic disorder, was raised by some skeptics attempting to explain how an entire family could report similar experiences. The long-term psychological impact on the Smurl family extends far beyond their eventual departure from the Chase Street duplex in 1988. Even after relocating, family members reported ongoing difficulties including nightmares, hypervigilance, and a persistent inability to feel truly safe in their own homes. The trauma of those years fundamentally altered their baseline sense of security in the world. Jack Smurl, who passed away in 2003, reportedly never fully escaped the psychological shadow of those experiences. As you reflect on the Smurl family's ordeal, consider your own assumptions about reality and how you might respond if your most fundamental beliefs about the world were challenged by undeniable personal experience. Would you have the courage to speak your truth in the face of disbelief? Could your mind withstand prolonged exposure to phenomena that shouldn't exist according to everything you've been taught? If you found this psychological deep dive into one of the paranormal world's most complex cases valuable, subscribe to the Mystery Archive for more explorations of the strange, unexplained, and deeply human stories behind supernatural phenomena. Share this video with fellow mystery enthusiasts who appreciate going beyond the surface to understand the profound impact these experiences have on real people. And in the comments below, let us know, do you think the psychological effects of the Smurl haunting prove or disprove the supernatural nature of their experiences? Until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring, and remember that sometimes the most frightening mysteries are the ones that take place inside the human mind.